shot of that.
Okay.
That's pretty neat, right? I mean, that's officially, I believe, the third highest
Yes, it
military
is.
honor.
Yes, it is.
What was that like when they pinned that on you?
Well, Lieutenant Prendall, my platoon leader, also got a Silver Star the same day. We fought next to each other at the end of the battle. And he was standing on my right, I was standing here, and a couple other guys on my left. We were under a parachute in the rain, standing on a landing zone called Pony in the middle of nowhere.
That's where you were giving your commendation.
Yeah, that's where I got it. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing fancy back here, no trip to
It
the
was all
White House.
filthy, dirty. Had been in the field for 3 months, and we hadn't washed, shaved, or changed clothes or anything. We were just there, you know. There was another award decoration before that time, and Lieutenant Prendall and I became really good friends. Matter of fact, Pebby got to meet him 2 years ago in Connecticut. And we didn't go to the awards ceremony. We went downtown to get something to eat. So we didn't make the first one.
Yeah, but that was second one. That was not. Both of them were nice, but that's like Silver Star special.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. So tomorrow, you heard what these are like. I'm sure you've seen some videos. You obviously have a lot of pride. You're wearing your sweatshirt here today. What do you expect when you walk through Midway tomorrow?
Well, I expect to see a lot of people first I don't know. I really don't know. I've flown numerous times over the years, and it's going to be, I don't know, it's going to be interesting. I know that because it's been a long time since I've been with that many veterans. Yeah, I've been to two of my company's reunions in one of my divisions, and Peggy went to one with me a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, I guess, and it was interesting. Didn't know hardly anybody, but it was interesting.
But there's that bond, right?
Yeah, there is. It's like, yeah, it's hard to explain.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's hard. It's hard for us to understand, but so. When you're there in D.C., what will that be like? Have you been to any of the monuments already, or is this your first time?
Peggy and I were there 2 or 3 years ago to the memorial there, and it was there's a place where there's 35 names in a row.
Right, absolutely. So did you feel, and don't want to get controversial, or if you just be honest. What was your homecoming like when you came back? I think you came back in 68?
65.
65. You came back in 65.
Yeah, I came back in July 65. My dad met me at O'Hare Field. Actually, he walked past me. He didn't recognize me. And it was just very quiet. There wasn't any protesters or anything when I was there. So I was happy about that. We'd been told about, possible people spitting on you and throwing rocks at you and stuff like that. But I didn't have any of that, and I was glad I didn't have to deal with it. So, yeah.
But it wasn't anything like you'll see tomorrow.
What?
It wasn't. It won't be anything. It wasn't anything like you'll see tomorrow.
No, tomorrow they're honoring us, and when we came home, there was nothing. I think it was '84. They had the homecoming parade in Chicago. I went on Sunday, the last day of it, because my then wife gave me a hard time all week about going, and she kept saying, "You're going to meet all your old friends and all that." And I said, "We won't meet anybody." And she asked me why. I said, "Because most of us were loners, and we just kind of were thrown into the punch bowl together,
Yeah.
And we managed to become friends, and some of us became brothers."
Absolutely. How many of the men that you served closely with are still here?
Don't really know.
Okay.
I've seen 3 of them since I've been back. I know that at least 8 of them are dead out of our platoon. In the battle in 506 Valley, there was 17 of us left that day. So there probably isn't a lot of us left, actually.
And you went in with how many?
54.
54. Do you mind talking about that just a little bit?
No, I can.
Okay.
And
it was one of the most famous battles in all of Vietnam.
Yeah, it was. I have a copy of it downstairs for you.
Okay.
Bob March wrote the story up, and in 2018, Bob March called me from Washington, D.C., or Washington State. He lives on an island offshore. He's secluded, kind of. He's like a lot of us. And anyway, he wanted me to come to the reunion in San Antonio, and I said, you know, Bob, I put the war behind me, and I don't want to deal with it anymore. You know, up until that time, I never talked about it. My two wives didn't know anything about it. My first two wives, Peggy does because she had a real big interest in it, and so after a few calls, I decided, okay, I'm going to go. So I went, but I said I probably won't be interviewed. So after the second day, they convinced me and explained to me why really I was there. In this battle, whoever wrote the story afterwards for the National Archives wasn't there. It was somebody that was all hearsay, and they really didn't tell really what happened except for what hearsay was. So Bob asked me if I and whoever else was left, a guy named Innett and Lieutenant Prendle, but Paul doesn't travel, Lieutenant Prendle doesn't travel. He turned 80 last year. And so everything was lies. They gave me three papers that came out that were declassified. So I sat and read them all, and I thought, this never happened to us. I mean, it's like somebody totally else was in this battle, not us. Just our names in the sense of our unit, you know, and that was pretty much it. So I agreed to the interview. It was an hour and a half long, and it was tough for me. Bob March was in first platoon. I was in second platoon, and we were there together for about 3 months before he rotated back to the States. So he ended up writing up an article for our, let's call it a news magazine for our company. And so he put this every month. Every 4 months it comes out, and he puts a war story in there that actually took place with who, and what. So he wrote this up, and it turned out to be in one of our newsletters, and I don't know how it got picked up from Vietnam Magazine, but I'm sure Bob had a lot to do with it. And he did call me and tell me it was going to be in there, and I really didn't think it was, you know. But what he told me was that there's 5 people on the board in Vietnam Magazine, and in order to get it in there, 3 people have to vote yes. He said all 5 of them voted yes. So it was one of the biggest battles in Vietnam. We had 35 killed and 81 wounded. The squad I was in, everybody was dead or wounded but me. Our platoon was decimated. Sergeant Cook's squad, 10 of the 11 guys were killed. The guy that survived passed out. He was so scared he passed out. And he passed out, and I understood it because I talked to him later that night. He had a grenade launcher, and it doesn't, when you shoot it, it shoots a 40 millimeter grenade. And when it goes out, it's got to go 10 feet before it's armed. They were closer than 10 feet when they overran him. So it just bounced off the guy. It might have hurt him a bit, but wouldn't have killed him. And he was so scared he passed out. So anyway, the battle was pretty rough, and then we pulled back after a while. I had gotten the first 10 wounded guys out. I patched them up. I cleared the trees of snipers, and then I took out a bunker. And there was another bunker with Sergeant Trevino, my squad leader, and Doc Beankamp. It was one of my good friends in Vietnam. They were both shot twice and laying in front of the bunker. And there was no cover. I mean, not a weed, not anything more than about that tall. So I knew I couldn't get to them. I didn't have any more rounds for the grenade launcher. I only had 3, and I used them. So I ran down this hedgerow. I got Lieutenant Prendle and Kelvin Brown, my best buddy in the Army, which we're going to get together in a few weeks. And so we got back. Kelvin had a machine gun. So Lieutenant was going to shoot the machine gun at the bunker. We were going to run out, and get the wounded. And about halfway out to him, the machine gun malfunctioned. And all I could think of was, I looked at Brown as we were running, and I thought, you know what? We're going to die together. We got to him. He grabbed Doc Beankamp. I grabbed Sergeant Trevino. We got him out. We just were real lucky. That's all.
It's kind of like you see the movie Forrest Gump, right?
Yes.
So probably not as fast as Forrest Gump. But was that you pulling people out and pulling them to safety?
I think Brown and I could have set Olympic records that day.
Do you remember how many bodies you did get out in all? How many of your comments?
First there was 10.
Okay.
I patched all them up. I put weapons in their hands. Told them I gave them a sector to watch. I told them if anybody comes through there, you kill them. Empty the gun in them. Just kill them. I don't care what uniform they have on. American, Vietnamese, anything. Just kill them because nobody in front of us is friendly. And then the two were left in front of the bunker. And like I said, I couldn't get to them by myself, and I knew I was never going to get. It was about 30 yards to get to them, and I knew it was all open, and I couldn't do it. So, like I said, I ran down the hedgerow. I got the machine gun with Brown, came back, and we got them out. And then I patched them up and pushed them through a hedgerow behind us and down the lane out to a rice paddy to a medevac.
And that was it. Should have made it, huh?
They all made it.
Yes, I mean they all did. Did they really? Everyone that you pulled out made it.
All 12.
All 12. What? I mean that I don't even really. I don't even know.
Well, the only one that came back was Bean Camp,
Okay.
the medic,
Okay.
and it was a big reunion.
I bet.
We were pretty happy.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. You weren't. I mean, you went over as a radio operator, correct?
Well, actually, I went over as an 81 millimeter mortar guy, but when I got there, after I got out of the mess hall, they gave me a radio. Weighs 35 pounds plus an extra battery and an antenna and a handset. It's like 5 more pounds. So it's 40 pounds before you take a step, And you had another 40 or 45 pounds of ammunition, food, a rifle, a pistol, and so on. You got 90 pounds at least on your back. And sometimes we had to carry mortar rounds. The first time we went out, I had 3 mortar rounds on top of that. And I was carrying almost my weight.
Unbelievable. Hey, because you weren't very big, right?
No, I'm what I am. I mean, I was a fatter guy than I am today, but I lost all that too while I was there.
So you go from radio guy to saving 12 people's lives.
I was 5 months radio operator, RTO they called him, and in that battle, I took the radio off to fight because I couldn't use it and do what I needed to do. It weighs too much. I mean, you're carrying all that weight, it's a killer, day in and day out. And when I had the opportunity, I walked point. I'd rather walk point because I didn't have to carry that darn radio, So 5 months, I carried a radio. And then the next day I was my own squad. I carried the radio the next night, went out on another ambush the next night. I was with a guy named Sergeant Jeffers, who was the toughest black guy I ever met. And we were on an ambush, 7 of us and me, and we had noise all around us and fired a few shots, threw some hand grenades, and we ran. And we got back into the perimeter, and Lieutenant said, we got to go back out, set up another ambush. So Sergeant Jeffers broke down. I cried. I couldn't believe, but he only had like 10 days to go in Vietnam. It was a short timer, and I understood, So I went out with another sergeant who I'd never known before in his squad, and there was, I think, 8 or 9 of us on this ambush. And we went out and set up about a couple hundred yards in front of the company, right around the little village. And probably around 1 o'clock, something like that, I started hearing a lot of noise. So I called in on my radio and said I want an illumination round. So they popped the illumination round, and before it went out, I counted over 200 North Vietnamese soldiers. We were in their perimeter. I knew that when the sun came up, if they didn't leave before the sun came up, we were toast, I mean, they were going to see us. We were in just little bushes, I mean. So a strange thing happened. Fog started to set in the valley. About 2:30, something like that, 3 o'clock, I whispered in the sergeant's ear, passed the word, we're going up on this trail. I'm taking point, follow me, grabbed my suspenders in my back because you couldn't see anybody. I mean, it was like this here. So anyway, we started walking and walking and walking. It was like we walked forever. It's the longest walk of my life, let me tell you. Just kept walking. And as we were walking, I heard somebody talking on my left ear. His name was Transon. He was one of the RTOs. And I heard him in my handset. And I squeezed the handset, and I said, Transon, where are you? And he said, I'm in the perimeter. I squeezed the handset and I said, Transon, we're in the perimeter. Two-tell the lieutenant, we're here. We're in the perimeter and we're going to sack out. So I told the sergeant, tell everybody get off the right side of the road and go to sleep. So the next day I got promoted to acting sergeant.
Did you really?
And next month I got promoted to E4 and the next month sergeant. Yeah.
That didn't take long. But you've been through everything so quickly.
I had been doing, as a PFC, I was the lowest ranking guy in the company. And I was taking out long range reconnaissance patrols, 4 guys and me. We'd get on a helicopter about 8:45 at night, fly someplace, and by 10 after 9 we were on the ground someplace. And then we were on our own for, well, anywhere from right now till 10 days.
Unbelievable. And you were how old?
Well, I turned 21 in a hospital in Cameron Bay after I got shot.
So take it. So when to take us to that point then, and then we'll wrap up with that. But when you were wounded, what happened then?
We were on a night patrol. We were going to set up an ambush in that, and a bunch of people came out from our right and started shooting at us. And I was in front about 20 yards, maybe a little more. And well, they started shooting.
Yeah.
I had a bullet hole go through my shirt, never touched me. I got shot above my left ankle. I had a bullet hit on my pistol belt. I had my ammo pouch right here and 5 hand grenades. And on the hand grenade that was right here, a bullet hit the top of the hand grenade where it's like pulling the pin out.
Yeah.
The fuse was lit, it burnt down and exploded right here. And I caught from here to here, I caught about 50 pieces of shrapnel. The inside of the powder I discovered later on the next day was wet, and that's why I didn't die.
It didn't blow up.
But I should have. I didn't know I got hit with the hand grenade. I saw a big flash, and anyway, to make a long story shorter, I woke up in a tent the next morning after I got medevaced out that night, and sleeping on a cot with other people in this little tent. And my arm was hurting really bad, you know. So I rolled up my shirt, and I couldn't believe what I saw. All these pieces of shrapnel sticking out. The one was about that long. So I hobbled over to the aid station, and I told I need somebody to take this out of my arm. So a doctor sat me down, and he put some stuff on a tray, and they put a big, long clamp on it, and he ripped it out of my arm. I mean, he just didn't cut it out. He ripped it out. Well, my right hand went up right after that, and I hit him as hard as I possibly could. So I had a 22 Magnum Derringer that my dad sent me, so I pulled it out of my pocket and said, if anybody touches me, they're in a good place to get shot, because you're in the hospital. So I picked up the tray and that. I hobbled over to the mess hall, and I cut most of it out, the big pieces out of my arm. And I was bleeding, and the cook came out, and he says, Rock, you're bleeding. I said, yeah, I know, but I said, I got to get this out of my arm. So anyway, make a longer story short, the cook guy, he flew me back to NK base camp. They operated on me. 10 days later, they flew me out to Quinn Young. I got stitched up 10 days later. It was healing up into the wound, you know, the bandage. And then after that, about 3 or 4 days, they sent me to Cameron Bay to learn to walk again.
How many, you had, at least, I think I counted at least half dozen close calls?
I'm only alive because God sent an angel to protect me. There's a lot more that you wouldn't even believe. Even I don't believe. But I was there.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Chewy, is there anything else that you want?
Right now I'm just speechless, but
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Can we see the silver?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
All right, great.
These here are all patches from World War I, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Okay. My youngest son and I started a military surplus business about 25 years ago,
right.
which is really doing well. And he made that for me one year, and he also gave me the big patch there. Yeah, that's what I wore on my shoulder in the Army.
And this is you here.
That's me, yeah. It's when I left the Army.
You were Jack. You were ripped. Look at you, man.
That's why my dad didn't recognize me, because I had nothing on my uniform when I left.
That's amazing.
My dad was a hero in World War II. He got a Purple Heart, a Bronze Star, and a Silver Star. So
How many, well, I'm sure there are several, but probably not a ridiculous number of father-son combinations with silver stars.
yeah, I know there's a few. I've heard
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
It
yeah,
can't be a crazy number.
yeah. There's also a couple of Medal of Honor winner fathers and sons.
All right.
Yeah.
So the silver star is which one of these?
This one here.
That's the one up there.
Yeah,
okay.
see, right there, there's a little tiny silver
Oh, yeah,
star
it is.
inside
Okay,
there. And that's the award that they presented to me,
Yeah. Okay.
the
right.
paperwork
Right,
there.
right,
Yeah.
paperwork,
And the picture to the right there, my mom had that decoupaged on there sometime in 1966,
okay.
not sure when. But that was on the front page of the Joliet Herald
Herald
News.
News, I'm sure it was. I had a feeling that's what it was, fighting, except for a few people.
I might add, I'm treasurer of Disabled American Veterans of Will County,
awesome.
Chapter
Okay.
103. We meet in New Lenox. If you know any veterans in need,
Okay.
give me a call.
And when you asked if he was a badass in high
Yeah,
school,
yeah.
I have to tell you, when I met his Paul Prindle, your sergeant, right?
Platoon leader, lieutenant.
Platoon leader. Okay, lieutenant.
He was head of the
And
platoon.
I wish I could remember this exactly as he said to us. But he said what he remembered. He's like, he was in Vietnam for a couple days, and he says, here's this kid, doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, doesn't play cards, reads his Bible every day. He's like, what the heck am I going to do with him? And I just was like, and that's who he is.
Right.
And yet, and like his picture, he has such attitude. and to think that he was the one then that they
I know.
all
Isn't that
did
crazy?
Yes.
Lieutenant Prindle told Bob March, the guy who wrote the article, that if he could fight with someone in any place, any time, and pick one person out of the company to be with, he said it'd be me.
The quiet guy that doesn't drink, smoke, cuss, and reads his Bible.